What's up, everybody? It's Jordan from the Sports Behind Show. In this video, I want to be doing an off-season preview for the Houston Texans. I want to be doing a free agency mock for them, doing a 3-round mock draft from PFF, and based on the moves I do for them in this video, I'll kind of be doing a record prediction for them based on the moves throughout this video. So let's go ahead and get started here. So Houston was 3-13-1 last season. They fired their coach once again for back-to-back seasons. They fired Lovie Smith after just 1 year, and they hired DeMeco Ryans. I think that's a great hire for Houston. I really think that's the safest and best hire Houston possibly could have done. But when you look at Houston's team needs, they need several things. They need a quarterback. They need a wide receiver. They can use some more edge and some more offensive line, but really more so interior offensive line. But they might need a left tackle if they do decide to trade Laramie Tunsil. Look at some of the re-signs here. It's interesting because the Texans have about $40 million in cap space or so. There is a chance Brandon Cooks gets traded. I did not calculate that into that because it's kind of hard to predict what they would get in return for Brandon Cooks. But with their re-signs, I only have them really re-signing one guy. That is edge rusher Ogbani Alcaranco. I'm sure I pronounced that name wrong. Last season, he was one of the few bright spots for this Houston defense. He had 5 sacks and 11 quarterback hits last season. DeMeco Ryans is a defensive genius, and I feel like if he would stay maybe another year, he could have another pretty solid year for Houston. Like I said, edge rusher is in need. I don't think it'll be bad if the Military signed him to a one-year deal worth about $3 million. Because some of these free agent signings here, with DeMeco Ryans been with the 49ers the past couple of years, I think that helps Houston a lot because he has familiarity, and he's familiar with some of these players. He's coached some of them. Several players to me who I think Houston will go after in free agency has been coached by DeMeco Ryans. Starting off as also another edge rusher, and Jordan Willis. I had the Houston Texans sign him to a 2-year deal worth $5 million. He's not a great player by any means, but he's a guy who knows DeMeco Ryans. He's been coached by him. He's a pretty decent rotation edge. The last 3 years, he's had 7.5 sacks. Getting more depth at edge, I don't think would be a bad idea for Houston. So I have Jordan Willis signing with Houston to a 2-year deal worth $5 million. Running back, they could also use some running backs as well. I had them signing Jeff Wilson to a 2-year deal worth $8 million. He might honestly get more than that. This past season, he had 176 rushing attempts for 860 yards, 5 touchdowns. He also had 22 receptions to go along with 185 receiving yards and a touchdown. So we had over 1,000 total scrimmage yards this past season. I feel like if the Texans signed him, that would be a great signing there. I feel like he's honestly one of the more underrated players in this free agency market, coming up soon. But Jeff Wilson and Jordan Willis, to me, I feel like already those are 2 pretty good signings the Houston Texans can make here. Another signing I had them going after is another edge rusher, Arden Key. The last 2 seasons, Arden Key has 11 sacks. This past year, he was with Jacksonville, but the year prior, he was with the 49ers, and that's where the connection with DeMeco Ryans comes in. Arden Key is much better than Jordan Willis. I think Arden Key, if he plays for the Houston, he's going to start immediately. I think this would be a very good signing for Houston. I had them signing a 2-year contract worth $11 million. This would be a very underrated, good signing here if Houston is able to get this done. Another signing here, like I said, Houston's offensive line is bad, but it's really more so their interior offensive line. When you look at Kenyon Green, the rookie last year from A&M, he was absolutely terrible. He had 525 pass blocks at left guard. He had 47 pressures and 12 penalties. That cannot happen again. And also, you got the other, guard position. A.J. Kane is getting up there in age. So to me, I don't think it would be a bad idea if the Texans go after guard Ben Powers. They sign him to a 3-year deal worth $24 million. Last season, Ben Powers had 1,096 snaps last season. He only allowed 1 quarterback hit, and he allowed 0 sacks. He would be a significant improvement to this offensive line for this Houston Texans team. I feel like Ben Powers would be a terrific signing for the Houston Texans. Honestly, when I look at all the free agency signings I have them doing, to me, I feel like this is probably the best one that could really benefit Houston the most because, their interior offensive line is really bad. Their tackles are great in Howard and Tunsil, but there's a chance Tunsil could be traded. But you have to improve that interior offensive line this season for whoever the quarterback will be for Houston. Another signing here I have the Texans making, I like this one also a lot here, is I have them signing DJ Chark to a 2-year contract worth $15 million. When you look at the Houston Texans last season, Brandon Cooks had 699 receiving yards. More than likely, he's going to be traded. Chris Moore had 548 receiving yards. He's a free agent, and you don't know if the Texans are going to re-sign him. So if those were to be the case, if both those players were gone, the Houston Texans do not have a player that had over 500 receiving yards last season returning to their team this year. DJ Chark, to me, is one of the more underrated wide receivers in the league. Last season, DJ Chark, when he was with the Lions, he had 30 receptions for over 500 yards and 3 touchdowns. He had over 16 yards per catch. It's very, very impressive. And, 30 receptions, that's not a lot for a guy of Chark's caliber. When you look at the Lions, they have so many weapons in offense. It was kind of hard to get everybody the ball at times. But Chark, to me, immediately improves this wide receiver core for the Texans that they desperately need upgrades at. And I feel like getting Chark is the right way to start off by getting a reliable receiver in free agency. So when you look at some of these moves I did in free agency, I had them re-signing Ogbonnia Okoronkwo, I know I pronounced the name wrong, to a one-year deal worth $3 million. I had them signing Jeff Wilson to a 2-year contract worth $8 million. I had them signing Jordan Willis to a 2-year contract worth $5 million. Arden Key, a 2-year deal worth $11 million. Ben Powers, a 3-year contract worth $24 million. And DJ Chark to a 2-year contract worth $15 million. So let's go ahead and get started here with this 3-round mock draft from PFF. The Houston Texans have the 2nd pick overall. With the 2nd pick overall, I have them getting Bryce Young. I know Houston fans, some of them prefer C.J. Stroud. I like Young more. I feel like Young would be the safer pick. I think he's better than Stroud. When you watch some of the games of Stroud, he just does not look that great when he's blitzed. I feel like Young, he's a better passer. I feel like you can expect more from him. He's a much safer pick to me. I know it's very debatable among Houston fans, but even if you took C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young at number 2, I feel like it's neither one of those picks are bad. But I feel like, in my opinion, those are the only 2 quarterbacks I'm even considering with the 2nd pick overall for Houston. So Houston gets their quarterback of the future with the 2nd pick overall. And they also have, they have 2 first-round picks this year. They have a 2nd pick and they have a 12th pick. The 12th pick overall, I love this pick so much. I don't know what's going to happen. But if it does happen, that's great for Houston. They get Ohio State wide receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba. He is an amazing talent. If it wasn't for injuries, to me, I feel like he'd be a lock to be a top 5 pick. Many people consider him the best wide receiver in this draft class, even though he's kind of slipping a bit due to injuries this past year. Injuries this past year, he only played in 3 games. He had a season-ending injury. But in 2021 season, he was amazing. He had 1,600 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns, 17 yards per reception. He was phenomenal. I feel like, he is one of the best wide receivers in several years, it seems like, in a draft. But Jackson Smith-Njigba, that is a great way to improve your wide receiver core for the Houston Texans. You get him and Chark much better compared to what it looks like right now with a more than likely Brandon Cooks gone. But that's a great way to get arguably the best wide receiver in the board with a 12th pick overall and a nice receiver in Chark in free agency. With the 2nd round pick, it's kind of an interesting pick here. There's lots of trade talks about them possibly trading Laremy Tunsil. So I have them getting a tackle here with the 33rd pick. I have them getting Tennessee offense tackle Darnell Wright. He's played left tackle. He's played right tackle. He could play both positions. But Tunsil, I feel like he might get traded. It's not for sure, but there's been talks about him possibly getting traded. But I don't feel like Darnell Wright would be a bad pick here. If you were to lose Tunsil, you're going to have to draft an offensive tackle early in the draft. Darnell Wright, to me, is probably the best player available here. I'd be surprised if he slipped out of the 1st round. I've seen him be a top 25 pick on most mocks recently. But getting a possible franchise left tackle here for the Houston Texans is not a bad idea with a 33rd pick overall. The Texans have 2 third-round picks, and with their first third-round pick, I have them selecting Maryland corner Deonte Banks. When you look at Houston, their secondary was bad last year. Only bright spots were Jalen Petrie and Derek Stingley Jr. Petrie was phenomenal. Stingley was pretty good as well, but they could use more help in the secondary position. And I really feel like when you look at D'Amico Ryans, there's going to be times where you might think, Houston might go as an offensive player, but instead they go the defensive route because he's a defensive genius. Last season, Banks for Maryland had 38 tackles, interception, and 8 passes defended. I feel like it would give them more depth in the secondary, so that's not a bad pick there with a 65th pick overall for Houston. And then, like I said, they have another 3rd-round pick with a 73rd pick overall. I have them drafting Alabama linebacker Henry Tuo. In 2 years at Alabama, he has 205 tackles, 15.5 tackles for loss, and 8.5 sacks. That is crazy in just 2 years. And when you look at the Houston Texans, they can use another linebacker. I feel like he would not be a bad pick here. I know some of the grading scales have him much lower on their big boards. I've seen him be on a big board about at 130, 140. I don't get that at all. I feel like right here would be a pretty good pick for him. for Houston to get him here with a 73rd pick overall. Looking at this mock draft here, I think it's pretty good for Houston. They got Bryce Young with the 2nd pick overall. With the 12th pick, they get Jackson Smith-Njigba, the wide receiver from Ohio State University. The 33rd pick, they get Tennessee offensive tackle Darnell Wright. And with their 2 third-round picks, they get Maryland corner Deontay Banks. And with their other 3rd-round pick, they get Alabama linebacker Henry To'oTo'o. So when you're looking at kind of this, Houston Texans schedule here, upcoming season, based on the moves I did in this video, looking at this Houston Texans schedule here, so they play, to me, arguably the worst division of football in the AFC South. They play the Bengals, Falcons, Ravens, and Panthers. I think they win 1, possibly 2 of those games. Colts, Jaguars, Titans, Brown, same thing, 1, maybe 2. Steelers, Saints, Buccaneers, Colts, 1, maybe 2. And then the final 5 games, the Jaguars, Titans, Broncos, Cardinals, and Jets. I think they win maybe 2, maybe 3 of those games. So to me, when you're looking at this Houston Texans team, based on the moves I did in this video with their draft and their free agency signings, I have them going 6-11 this upcoming year based on the moves I did in this video. And that's not bad because they're doubling their win total from the year prior. But that about does it for this video. Let me know what you think in the comments about the moves I made for the Houston Texans in free agency and throughout their draft. If you're new to the channel or have seen my videos before, I would really appreciate it if you could like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time on the Sports Studio Heinz Show.